When you picture a modern Rolls-Royce, you think of billionaires and royalty. It is the global standard for silent, high-end travel, famous for gliding through courtyards with a cabin so quiet you can hear a clock ticking at 60 miles an hour. But the brand's origin is far less pristine. In the 1860s, Henry Royce was a 9-year-old fatherless child laborer, delivering newspapers on the smog-choked streets of England just to keep his family from starving. He pulled himself out of poverty through sheer obsession. He read dozens of books, taught himself electronics and carpentry, and used his life savings to open a small electrical fittings business in Manchester. By 1900, he had built a successful company, but it was wiped out in an instant. American and German competitors flooded the British electronics market, crashing prices. Royce's business collapsed, and the financial stress caused his physical and mental health to fail. The brand, now associated with wealth, actually began with a severely ill, bankrupt mechanic teetering on the edge of ruin. His doctor gave him a stark choice: get outside for fresh air or die. So Royce bought a French-made Decoville automobile to travel in without physical strain. It was a disaster. The brakes barely worked, it overheated constantly, and made unbearable noise. For a man wired to fix things, driving a broken machine was physical torture. Instead of returning it, he scrapped the entire design, built a custom 2-cylinder engine, and essentially engineered his own superior vehicle from the ground up. That prototype caught the eye of Charles Rolls, a wealthy, aristocratic salesman who already ran a successful luxury car business. He realized he had found a genius engineer, and they agreed to a joint venture, combining Rolls's capital with Royce's mechanical precision. To demonstrate what their combined resources could do, they built the Silver Ghost. As this diagram shows, the internal moving parts of the engine were timed so precisely that they actively canceled out their own vibrations. They proved this to the public with the whisper test, balancing a coin perfectly still on the hood while the engine was running. Automotive luxury did not come from a marketing effort to coddle the rich. It was born from an engineer's intolerance for mechanical noise and imperfection. The partnership was cut short by a horrific accident. Charles Rolls was a passionate aviator, and in 1910, the tail section of his right flyer broke mid-flight. He crashed from a height of 100 feet, becoming the first person in Britain to die in an airplane accident. Barely a year later, the company suffered a second blow. Doctors diagnosed Henry Royce with terminal bowel cancer, telling the deeply grieving engineer he had roughly 3 months left to live. Royce refused to stop working. He spent what he thought were his final days intensely refining the Silver Ghost's suspension and chassis. He even commissioned the iconic Spirit of Ecstasy hood ornament to ensure the brand's aesthetic was strictly controlled. And then, against all medical odds, he made a full recovery. Facing his own death shifted his focus. By standardizing the brand's look and refining the machine's durability, Royce ensured the company could function without his constant presence. He was no longer just building cars. He was building a system that would preserve his engineering standards for decades. That legacy faced an immediate threat when World War I broke out in 1914. The global economy crashed, wiping out the luxury car market overnight. By all logic, Rolls-Royce should have gone bankrupt again. Instead, Royce approached the military with a plan. This historical photo shows how he took the smooth Silver Ghost chassis, stripped it down, and mounted 8mm thick armor and a heavy revolving machine gun turret directly onto it for desert combat. By reinforcing the suspension to handle massive payloads, they also created a vehicle stable enough to serve as a battlefield ambulance. These modified cars transported wounded soldiers smoothly across crater terrain without causing further injury. Then he noticed a bigger structural problem. The British military was dependent on foreign companies for airplane engines. This engine is the Eagle. Royce taught himself aero design from scratch and built a power plant lighter and more reliable than anything else in the sky, giving Britain a major advantage in aerial combat. Rolls-Royce didn't survive the war by waiting for luxury buyers to return. They survived because the mechanical precision required for quiet cars translated directly into armor-plated survival and high-performance flight. By the time peace returned, Rolls-Royce was a dual-threat empire. They continued dominating aviation while returning to the consumer market, launching the post-war Phantom and acquiring their struggling rival, Bentley. Henry Royce passed away in 1933 at the age of 70, but he left behind a company culture permanently hardwired with his frantic, obsessive problem-solving. Today, that legacy is hidden in plain sight. When you look at a modern Rolls-Royce, it is easy to see a delicate status symbol meant to shield the wealthy from the outside world. But that silence and perfection is the direct result of extreme adversity. The symbol of modern wealth was built by a starving boy who taught himself math, beat cancer, and engineered his way through a global war.